In this video, we're going to talk about how to mount cages to your forks. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Let me say thank you right up front to all of you who have supported our channel as well as watching our videos. We greatly appreciate it, and we especially appreciate all of the comments that you've left on our various videos. In fact, this video, it comes about because of one of those comments. Somebody asked me on one of the bike packing videos how it is that I mount my cages to my front fork as well as the rear rack. So I thought I would share with you today basically the quick evolution of how I went from what I started with to where I am today. Now, I started out by mounting water bottles onto the front fork of my giant Roam, and I just went down to the hardware store and bought some of these basic hose clamps, and then took some old tube and wrapped around the fork, or you can use some kind of tape, electrical tape, or some people say use helicopter tape or gaff tape, something that will protect the fork. I took some old water bottle cages and modified them so I could get the clamps through them, and that worked really well, and I still use that system today whenever I'm riding the trails with Andrea and we need more water. But then when I leveled up and I started riding my Jones and began to go bike packing, I wanted something with a little more capacity than just those water bottles, and so I bought these Blackburn, I call them anything cages, these large format cages. I like the Blackburn cage the most because it's not made out of plastic. It's made out of metal or some kind of aluminum, and so they seem more sturdy and they work great. And I could still use these clamps in order to put them on. After a while though, I began to realize that there are times when I want to take this cage off of the fork and just ride my bike on the trails or something, and so that became kind of a hassle to take those clamps on and off. And then I discovered this clamp, which is made by King Cage. It is stainless steel, and it comes with a bolt and a nut already welded onto it, and so the same process, you can wrap something around to protect the frame, and in this case I found a special plastic or rubber type tape that would stick to itself and provides perfect protection. And I would mount these on, and I used these for a while to be able to put on the cage or take it off, and they work great for most cases. However, on one of my bike packing trips, I wound up going down a descent that was pretty chunky gravel, and I wound up having a failure, and it turned on me and started to go into the wheel. And I had to make a repair there in the field. Everything turned out fine, but it made me start thinking that maybe I want to do something different. And so because of that, I wanted to do something a little more permanent. And so what I wound up doing is doing a lot of research on the internet and just searching around with blogs and reading and trying to find as much as I can about how to insert permanent attachment points. So what I discovered after doing some looking around were these things called riv nuts. And these come in all kinds of different sizes and shapes and different metals. And basically, you might be familiar with a rivet and how it collapses down. Well, that's exactly what this is, except on the inside it has some threads to be able to put a bolt inside of it, and it collapses down. I wanted to practice this first before I did anything to my bike, and I saw on some videos and some other places where you can do this to your bike, but you have to be very careful with what kind of bike you're using. You certainly do not want to do it into carbon fiber, but this is a steel bike. I've seen them, I've had friends actually who've done it even on aluminum bikes, and so it is possible. So I just went online and I bought this rivet tool, and there are different styles of this. I just like this one because it gave me a lot more torque to be able to really get a good clamp. And this particular tool comes with several different mandrels that you can change out, and so all different sizes of those riv nuts. And so I practiced with this on metal and different pieces of aluminum and metal and things so that I could get good at it and understand what it was I was doing. You have to have a very specific bit, or size bit I should say, for the riv nut, and then also understand how you're going to mount it. So for me, what I decided to do was to install 2 mounts towards the front of the fork. Now there are different schools of thought and opinions on this as far as where to put them. Most of your manufacturers will have them right down the side. They'll usually have 2 or 3 on the side, sometimes on the back and sometimes on the front. And I'm sure there's different schools of thought or engineering purposes for doing that, but for me, it just made more sense to put it on the front, so in case I had any kind of a failure, it wouldn't be sliding back or rotating back into my wheel, which could cause an accident if it locked up the wheel. And the way that I've mounted these, I leave enough room so that the wheel can pass easily through it. Any mud or water goes right through it, and there's still plenty of room, and they're easy access. And I've used these for quite some time, and I'm very happy with the results. I haven't had any issues with any kind of movement. They seem to be very solid. I try to always mount the bolts in there with a torque wrench so that I don't over torque these, and everything seems to be working well. I would love to hear your comments about why you would put them more towards the front, the side, or the back. If you would drill into a fork or not, because I know that's taboo for some people, but this is just what worked for me after doing some research, and it seemed to work real well. And since this worked so well for me on the front, I decided to also do it on the rear rack. Now, I used to use the bottom bolt of the rack to put that on the bottom part of the cage and then tie wrap or use a clamp on the top part. But then I got the idea of just doing the same thing, drilling out the tube and putting in these riv nuts. And again, it has worked great. If there's any worry of failure, the thing is you're adding more strength by using the cage itself. This cage is adding more rigidness to it so that you can have a little bit more strength, and so far it is working real well. Well, there you have it. This is how I decided to mount cages onto my bike. I hope it's been useful for you, but I would recommend that before you do it, you do the same thing, that you do a little bit of research, try to learn a little bit more about it, and then once you get the tool, if you decide to go this route, then to practice, and then even talk to your bike shop or some other people who might have some expertise in bikes and bike packing to make sure that what you're about to do is not going to change the integrity of the fork or is going to cause any weakness or any kind of failure to the bike. Well, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and we'll see you in the next video.